Welcome to Inside Personal Growth Podcast. Deep dive with us as we unlock the secrets to personal development, empowering you to thrive. Here, growth isn't just a goal, it's a journey. Tune in, transform, and take your life to the next level by listening to just one of our podcasts. Well, welcome back to Inside Personal Growth. This is Greg Voisin, the host of Inside Personal Growth, and joining us from Paradise Valley, which is actually in Arizona, is Elaine Glass. And Elaine has a new book out, Hay House book, I might say, that's Get Quiet, 7 Simple Paths to the Truth of Who You Are. Good day to you, Elaine. How are you?
I'm amazing, Greg. Thanks so much for having me. It's an honor.
I'm amazing. I love when people say that. That's the best part. So many of my listeners out there maybe don't know that much about you. So they can learn more about you very simply by going to getquiet.com, or they can go to elaineglass.net. ELAINEGLASS.net. But I'm going to just speak because Elaine has a special book here, everybody, and we're all in the midst of just so much going around in our world. It seems like it's tough, but I want to tell them a bit about you. She's a visionary author, highly experienced master life coach, is renowned for transformational retreats tailored for women navigating intricate midlife transitions. This book, Get Quiet, will empower you to get back to feeling like yourself again. Elaine's path has been marked by significant leaps of faith, understanding the profound impact of connection and compassion. She realized the true transformation occurs when people feel genuinely acknowledged and understood. Driven by a profound sense of purpose, Elaine's mission is helping people live their best life. Her unique approach is known as the Get Quiet Way. It's a roadmap for discovering your inner treasures and bringing them fully up to the surface and out into the world. She encourages you to be who you are truly want to be, feel good again in your own skin, and realize your positive influence on your family and the world. Elaine's deepest commitments are service as most and just an inspiration. She serves as a catalyst for action. She inspires, encourages people to dive deep within, acknowledge their truths, and lead a life that's unapologetically authentic. Her journey exemplifies that and is never too late to pivot, find your voice, and make a meaningful impact to the world. Well, that is a great introduction, but more importantly, is what she wrote inside the book. And for all of my listeners, I want you to truly listen to this because she does have something meaningful to tell us about getting quiet or get quiet. But getting quiet is the process. So, Elaine, your journey towards self-discovery to silence, through a place of silence, is a place that many people would like to get. But I almost feel like sometimes there's a fear to go there. Can you share the moment or experience that inspired you to explore and eventually write about this concept, which has helped you in so many ways, personally and professionally?
Well, thank you for that beautiful introduction. And yeah, my life had gotten so loud. And my life had become so fearful. I was a single mom, making very important decisions and feeling really alone. And the world outside had gotten so noisy, and I felt so bombarded that I was craving to hear my soul's voice, my inner wisdom, the comfort that I just knew it was going to bring me. And so that's what led me on a journey to finding that stillness and that still, wise voice inside of me. Now, we all have it and we're born with it, but we lose it as life gets loud and busy and chaotic. What I know for sure, Greg, is that the people that have come to me with either struggles, physical, mental, emotional ailments, all have one thing in common, and that is life has gotten too loud and they cannot hear their soul's calling.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Why do you believe it is the enticement? It's almost like God played a joke on us when we were born, because as we aged, we started heading toward what we think is exciting, which is oftentimes the noise. You know, in many spiritual traditions from Eastern philosophy, we call it the Maya, right? The Maya is the noise. It's all the stuff that distracts us from being who we are. But it's so hard for us to get out of the Maya. And so my question for you is, why do you believe that as souls on this planet, really embodying this or wanting silence, we move the opposite direction?
You're right. We are souls first having a human experience. And that to me is what we have completely disconnected from, is knowing this. And so we're more tuned into what the body and the mind have to offer us. And look, we live in a great, world of pleasure and entertainment and ideas and wonderful human beings to connect to. And that's all wonderful and great because we are here to have a beautiful human experience. The problem is we are stuck in the mind and in the body and solely living from that place instead of remembering that we are truly souls here. And in order to know why we're here and what we're meant to do in this lifetime, we need to connect to that soul's voice that we have completely disconnected from. And you can only connect to that soul's knowing in quiet. And yes, it can be scary. And it can mean that you have to face some very difficult realizations. I believe that we are mainly addicted to one thing, and that is looking away at the truth of our lives. Mm-hmm. But what if we could have a way so that it's not so scary, so that it is simple, so that we can transform in ways we can't even imagine? And that's what the Get Quiet Way helps you do.
Well, it's almost like a little bit like Pavlov's dog. When a bell rings, they go, rah, 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 let's go get that, because we do get distracted so frequently from that. And it's not just meditation to get quiet, although meditation is one key areas that we've all talked about for years. But you outline in the book these 7 simple steps to help readers discover true self. And what I'd like you to do, if you could, is briefly describe the steps and entail how you came to identify them as this kind of crucial way to get quiet. Because, you use a labyrinth as your, I'm going to call it analogy. But in essence, if anybody out there has walked a labyrinth, I think it's not the first time walking a labyrinth. It's really, how many times can you walk that and explore something new and something different?
That's right. My metaphor is about walking a 7-circuit labyrinth that I found just by chance. One day, I went to a retreat center when I was desperate as a single mom living paycheck to paycheck to try to find the soul's voice to guide me when my life had gotten so loud. And so just finding this ancient tool that helped me so much connect to my soul was transformational. So the first path is all about nurturing your body. No more beating your body up. The very first thing that people usually will do when they're ready to change, when they're ready to transform their life, you will notice that they all of a sudden buy a new pair of tennis shoes. They sign up for their first yoga class. There's something within us that needs to shake our bodies awake to be able to tune in to that soul's voice. And it starts in a very physical way. So this is about connecting and nurturing our bodies and tuning into that life force, because so much of us are feeling like zombies these days.
Well, 10 years ago, you created the Get Quiet Way. If you would, you birthed it yourself. Explain how it works.
Well, it's all about shifting your energy. When you walk a labyrinth, or if you just read the book Get Quiet, because it's laid out in the same paths as you would if you were physically walking, you enter what I sense is a portal of magic. You enter a place where you can heal. And so the Get Quiet Way is about entering a different dimension so that you can heal, so that you can rediscover who you are. And so it was birthed by me needing to heal and me to come back and rediscover who I really was, because I had lost myself. Being a single mother and all the things I was carrying heavy on me, I needed to release everything I was carrying. And each path helps you release what you have been carrying for many, many years. And that's why we start with the body, because we've got to begin to release the heaviness that we feel in our bodies. And that can look like healing diseases. That could feel like, you're cleaning and clearing out what you're eating. I mean, there's so many. You're finally addressing the bumps and bruises and things that haven't looked normal on your body before. It's no more looking away at our bodies. It's addressing the health of our bodies. And this is where you start.
Well, that is what you call the first step. But I'd like to know, and the listeners probably would like to know, this first time you entered the labyrinth, you were in a different frame of mind, let's say. You found it, as you said, at this retreat. What happened to you, and what were some of the emotions and feelings that you were able to, in the short period of time it can take to walk a labyrinth, able to get in touch with, and I might say, transmute? A lot of people have feelings of lack of self-worth. That's a true one that's there. They don't feel like they're worthy. And I think sometimes true, it doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman, that's a real one for everybody.
The minute I found the labyrinth, the minute I started walking, and this can happen in a labyrinth or just outside in nature where it's finally quiet,
Mm-hmm.
I literally heard my soul's voice within 10 minutes of being in a quiet area. Mm-hmm. I was able to hear the words surrender so clearly, as if someone was walking right next to me saying those words. So that is the immediate thing that happened to me when I finally got quiet enough to hear my soul's voice. Not the clatter and chatter of the outside world, but this was truly me. This was me reporting to every cell in my body what it needed to hear. And so I took from that moment that wise counsel, and I took it throughout my whole entire life. And my emotions and my feelings around the word surrender triggered a lot, because how could I surrender? I mean, my life would fall apart if it did. But I stayed.
Well, so one of the things, pardon me for interrupting, but I remember this from the book, you state that the path of movement, getting the tennis shoes, moving the body, walking in the labyrinth, is associated with an energy point located in our abdomen. And you then went on to say it's important for us to work with our digestive systems to find out what is eating at us. And I think that's an interesting one, because many people don't give it a thought, but truly, digestive system maybe disorders are a clear look at what's going on inside of ourselves emotionally about what is eating us. Yeah?
Absolutely. I mean, the emotional eating that we do, the bloating that takes over our bodies, and we look away at what we are consuming, and then how do we digest that? And so you're exactly right when you say that we've got to look at our abdominal region. That region tells us so much about the health of our bodies. And what we're putting in and digesting will either be easily digested or literally our bodies will repel by bloating, by pain, by cramping, by so many symptoms and signs that this area is out of balance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I found it interesting because you talk about path 2 and path 3, which is the path to the heart. Now we're talking about something that's abdomen at this point, and actually in Eastern philosophies, if you look at the chakras and the way they move from the head down to the throat, down to the heart, down to the abdomen, down to your genital areas, there's quite a bit of similarity in the Eastern philosophy that way. But you're saying that the path to the heart. So what ways would you suggest to the listeners to kind of get more in touch? Because meditation is great for breathing. Yoga is great for breathing. It's also great for opening up the chest area and the heart. What is it that you would advocate while these people are walking this labyrinth in this part of the path to actually get in touch with that?
This path is about, like you said, the heart. And the only way to get in touch with the heart and break down the walls that we have built up through grief and loss and disappointment is through clearing out our environment, clearing out our homes, clearing out the heaviness of clutter, clearing out old storage units that are off-site that we've thrown away the key, but we keep paying every month. This is all dense, stuck energy. And when we clean and clear out our environments so that we can breathe easily, that it's not so confining and constricting, this is the path where we open up the heart so that we can begin to receive those messages that hit our hearts, not our minds, but our hearts. So this is all about releasing what's weighing us heavy down in our environment.
Well, one of the things that you talk about is this discovery of, you say it in the subtitle, the path of the truth of who we are, the truth. I want to focus in on the word truth. How do you define it? And in the context of self-discovery, why is it so vitally important? Because I think that when people say truth and then self, there's a bit of confusion. And I'm just going to say this from on even a personal standpoint, but even the 1,100 interviews I've done with people on spirituality, I don't think that everybody easily connects those two words, right? And so it's really important, I think, for the listeners to know that you've written a book that you're trying to help people really understand that. How would you help better them understand their truth?
When our minds are cluttered, when our environments are cluttered, when our bodies aren't healthy, we can't access the truth of who we are because we're a completely different person. If you're unwell, if your environment is unwell, how are you going to get to know the truth of who you are? I've seen people on medications who that medication actually changes their personality. How can you know the truth of who you are when you're on a medication that changes who you are? So there are so many things blocking us, so many roadblocks from feeling our best to know the truth of who we are. Mm-hmm. That's how I'm defining the truth. There's too many things in the way to actually know and be able to think right about the truth of our lives. It's the people that we have in our lives that might be toxic, the relationships that are causing us stress. How can you know the truth of who you are and make decisions that are right for you when you have the heaviness of stress every day?
How do you get enough emotional stamina to face those and or face the people that might be causing that in your life? I think for many of the listeners, that's an important one. You had to do it with your husband. You went through a divorce. You raised two kids on your own. And it frequently takes a lot of courage. And what they need to know is that the fear of doing it is less than what it's costing them now to actually hang on to it.
That's right. I mean, our health is our wealth. And if you are in a relationship that's not honoring you, that's not respecting you, a lot of times you're not honoring and respecting yourself, because you're going to attract the people that how you feel. And so, yes, we have to do difficult things. We have to make courageous acts. We have to change. But this path of getting quiet is about being able to move things, move the energy in your body, in your environment, and in your mind, so that you can change. If nothing moves, nothing can change.
Right. Well, we're coming to a topic which people have talked about for a long time, which is self-love and compassion. And you embrace this compassion toward oneself and others. Now, there are certain times in our life when wanting to make amends of a bad situation is really challenging. We have a hard time crossing over that line to say, I'm sorry, or to have someone else hopefully say they're sorry. And I think that creates a big divide in so many people's lives. What would you tell people today that are listening that are saying, hey, I need to be more compassionate with myself. I need to be more empathetic. I need to understand the other person's point of view. How does this step affect one's journey toward really what you call self-discovery, and why is it so crucial?
Again, the heaviness that we carry around with us because of the people who haven't said they're sorry. The heaviness that we carry around with us because we've decided not to take responsibility for what we've caused in our own life. This is what blocks us from that feeling of compassion and self-love. When we take ownership of our own lives and begin to lead ourselves in this way, we have so much more self-love. We have so much more self-compassion. And when we have it for ourselves, we can give it to others.
Mm-hmm. What is it that you would have listeners do? And, let's say exercises that they could do. I call them exercises because usually it is an exercise for them to particularly find this power and gain insight into one's true self. I mean, look, we can go from journaling to Tai Chi to yoga to meditation to everything in between. Do you have anything in particular that you would highly recommend to help us, meaning those who are listening, through the process of discovering oneself?
It's all of those things you just mentioned. I journal every day. I meditate every day. I walk every day. And the main thing is connecting back to nature. When we, as nature itself, connect outside ourselves with nature, we feel whole again. We feel like we belong again instead of being isolated or alone. And this practice alone helps people not feel alone and scared when they do get quiet. This is about reconnecting with our natural state, which is nature itself. And so getting quiet, walking the labyrinth, getting out in nature, this all allows you to hear and really listen what matters in your life. Because right now it's way too loud, it's way too noisy in all of our lives, and we're way too distracted. How do we come back to ourselves? What if we can hear exactly what we need that will guide our lives in the right direction? This is what that will do. It will guide you so that you can hear your soul's calling. It's so simple. Get quiet and listen. That is the message.
Yeah, and it's such a simple one, but yet a challenging one for people. And that comes down to this visualizations. The stories we tell ourselves. I ended up getting a psychology degree, a master's in spiritual psychology. We used to say that we live in a world of MSU, making stuff up. And we frequently do make things up. We make up stories that we tell ourselves about how we're not good, we're not worthy, we're inexperienced, or whatever it might be. How do you suggest rewriting those stories and reframing the stories so that we can feel, I should say, so that we can get to the truth of who we are?
You're right. We make up so many stories, and that the minute that we hear a story that upsets us, our whole nervous system just goes haywire. And then that story is on repeat. So the very first thing we have to do is actually acknowledge, wait a minute, I think that's a story I'm making up. I don't know that that's true. Get out a pen and paper and write down, as if you're a court reporter, just writing down the simple facts of your story without the emotion of it all. That is the key. Let's take the emotion out of your story. And in that moment, you will find that you're not so triggered, that just stating the facts of any story will help you see from like 1,000 feet up looking down that it's not as big as you think it is. And this alone can change your mindset. And in one of the paths, it's all about cleaning and clearing out your mind and getting really, really present to everything you do every day. And that includes these stories that we tell ourselves that are mainly, a lot of times, untrue.
Yeah, and with that, we've got to move beyond the story. And one of your paths of these 7 paths is you talk about the feet. You state that they're just 2 paths from the center. What are some ways for us to shift our energy toward the feet? You just said, hey, you walk every day. So you're out walking. Now, that doesn't mean you're walking on a labyrinth, but you are walking. And you say getting into nature, which is walking in nature, because that's about the only way there's other ways you can get in, but the reality is it usually is walking. What is the big point of getting in touch with the feet as a result of this to move the energy associated with a blockage in the body somewhere as a result of moving those feet?
The energy of just knowing that you're moving your life forward when you're walking forward. So that's the image, that you're moving your life forward. But more importantly, in the feet region, we're grounding ourselves to a state of being that we may never have felt before. We feel focused and grounded. And what I found in this particular energy area was that we not only ground to the earth, but we also ground to the heavens, because we are very human and also very divine. And so this grounding is upward and downward. And when you can visualize that, just that image alone in a quiet place, you will feel more love from the universe than you have ever felt before. So I feel like we've gotten grounding all wrong. I think it's not just down, but it's also upward.
Oh, yeah, most definitely, because it's bringing the energy in many times, as the Eastern philosophies, through meditation in your crown chakra all the way down. You call it, you actually say to the tailbone and the legs. But in essence, it is because you're clearing the energies where the vibrational element of what's now been in there is harmful, and you're trying to make it harmonious so that it vibrates at a different level. Because really, this is all about vibration. You and I, sitting here in this and connecting via Zoom, it's a vibrational level that's happening across the pathways and the airways. And in essence, if we could do it, which I think some masters of wisdom have been able to do, you could walk on water, right? But at this particular point, I think, not to keep it within the realm of this book, you're saying just getting quiet itself is going to bring that peace and new vibrational energy, correct?
100%. This is all about shifting your energy. And then once it's shifted, seeing where you land at that point. And after you've shifted the energy centers that I have developed in the body, your next step is to get inspired by what you're feeling, because you're going to feel healthier. You're going to feel brighter. You're going to feel more alert. You're going to feel more awake, because you will have made choices that are healthier for you. I've seen people, fix their marriages, stop drinking, getting right with their kids. This is the point where you've shifted so much that now you're inspired to actually live out what your soul is telling you to do in this lifetime. That's when you get healthy.
Right. Well, the soul's calling and listening to your intuition and actually having discernment and following that is a big area, actually following it. And I think
right.
there is
because
this. Go ahead.
There's a lot of scary things you will hear. I remember after a couple of years of walking the labyrinth, I was hearing things that I thought was crazy talk, Greg. I didn't know if I could trust what I was hearing, because it's really your soul's voice and God saying, this is what you are meant to do. I was a single mom. Who was I? I was just trying to get through everyday life. Who was I to be a healer? Who was I to write a book? Who was I to become a master life coach? Who was I? I didn't feel good enough. I didn't feel smart enough. I didn't feel like I deserved it, but I listened to what I heard every time I went to the labyrinth, and I trusted it, and I had faith in it, and I wanted to give up so many times writing this book, and I didn't. And every time I didn't, and every time I pushed through and I got quiet and listened even more, I would see synchronicities that would tell me you are on the right path. And that's what helped me get to where I am. I trusted it. I trusted what I heard. And that's what I want for everybody. That's what the quiet will do, is it will guide you and comfort you in ways that we all desperately are needing right now.
Well, for all those listeners who've made it this far in the podcast, take in a deep breath and close your eyes. And breathe out. And actually, when you do that, visualize in your mind's eye what you really see and want for yourself. And this is a great way for us all to get connected. And it's just that one simple breath. I only did one. Imagine if you did that for 10, 15, 30 minutes, what might happen. So the reality is you just need to stop, breathe, pay attention, be aware, and draw into the soul. Now, your mission with this book is to get people to feel totally connected with their soul, as you said several times during the podcast, and to feel the energy exchange with the heavens. One of those ways you can do that is obviously through meditation, contemplation, going into nature, doing all kinds of things. But there are other ways to get there. I know many people want to do it, but through microdosing drugs. I'm not saying you can or can't do any of those. I can tell you, if that's what you want to experience and go do ayahuasca, go do it. But the point is that you're all seeking this connection with the soul, because that's at the greatest level. So what advice would you provide our listeners in the practices that would allow them to maintain this freedom of the soul? And I think the key word there, Elaine, is maintain. It's one thing to make a connection. It's another thing to stay connected and to realize that that's what you want to do, and to remind yourself when you get off path that that's where you feel the most freedom and the most connection. What advice would you give people for, I'm going to say it, maintaining that?
It's staying awake to your life and not falling asleep at the wheel. It's waking up every morning and setting an intention And knowing these paths and knowing these energy points, that the intention of the day will be that I will stay on the path, that I will stay focused, that I will stay awake and aware to my life, that I won't get bound up in routine, that I won't go on autopilot. This is about staying awake to our lives. This is about consciousness and waking up. And this is really that simple and also that hard in a very loud and noisy world. So it just takes one conscious effort, one conscious thought, one breath to know that I need to stay on the right path, that I suffer if I go off of those paths, and I don't want to suffer anymore. And I want to live the second half of my life much different than I lived the first half. I want to live the second half of my life living out my soul's purpose. And that's the intention every day.
You know, it's an interesting how you and I connected. And again, for all my listeners, the book is Get Quiet. Okay? And it's Elaine Glass. Definitely we'll put a link to her website and a link to Amazon. And I was going to tell Elaine a story. Many, many years ago, my son got chronic myelogenous leukemia. And as a result of that experience, he and I teamed up. We started doing a workshop called Never Mind the Noise, Thriving in a World of Ever-Increasing Complexity. And it always amazed me that we would go do these workshops for logistical organizations like FedEx and UPS and all these people that delivered things that were always crunched for time. And we put our workshop out with that title, Never Mind the Noise, Thriving in a World. And thousands of these people came to these events. These were logistic events. And ours was the first to always get booked up. And all these men, and it was men, literally walked away, and they'd never meditated before. And we took them through their first meditation in their life. And they literally were running around the facility telling everybody, you got to go to that workshop called Never Mind the Noise, Thriving in a World of Ever-Increasing Complexity. These guys really, they take us through a meditation I've never done. And I thought it was the greatest thing because that's a true story. In a way, how you can touch people at a soul level when they actually quiet down and really take a look at things. So
I really appreciate that story. And I assume that your son is well now. And I find that what we're missing and what those men probably felt was that we're missing ourselves. Mm-hmm. In that moment, in those breaths, in those meditations, we come back to ourselves because we wonder what we're missing in our lives. We're missing ourselves.
Very well put. And with that, I will say namaste to you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being on Inside Personal Growth, sharing your wisdom around Get Quiet. And I'm going to say getting quiet because it's a process, and the 7 steps to getting there. I appreciate you being on and sharing with my listeners. Go out and get the book. We'll put a link to Eileen's website as well. Thank you for being on, and you've been wonderful. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Greg. Appreciate you.
Thank you for listening to this podcast on Inside Personal Growth. We appreciate your support. And for more information about new podcasts, please go to InsidePersonalGrowth.com or any of your favorite channels to listen to our podcast. Thanks again, and have a wonderful day.